Hey guys, it's your girl Boonie, and you're listening to episode 126 of the Boonie Breakdown podcast, your source for all things responsible and ratchet. All right, welcome to this week's episode. We have another responsible episode. I feel like it is well timed, well needed. It is tax season. You may or may not be getting a tax refund back. And I feel like this is a good opportunity to help you, get a good foot on your financial goals. And so that's why this week our guest is Sahirenys of Poised Finance Lifestyle. And she's all about helping to simplify money for millennials. The great thing about her, when I discovered her, she paid off $99,000 worth of debt while having a family, okay? And I know I've talked about it recently in the episodes that I am on this path to become at least consumer debt free by the end of this year. And I have a great conversation with Sahirenys about some of the tips and tools and but solutions she used to tackle her debt. And she also shares her popular high five banking method. And she swears by it. And this was so critical and crucial in her quest to building wealth for her family. And so if you are interested in this bomb conversation, you try and get your money right, new year, new you, new goals. We're trying to stay on top of these goals for 2020. Then stick around for that conversation. All right, let's hop right into my pick of the week. This week, I am going to choose something kind of generic and broad, but I think it's on par for the conversation that we have in this episode, and that is an accountability partner. I have a few, and it's not one person who does them for all of the things. So KG right now is my paid down debt accountability partner. I have accountability partners when it comes to the creative stuff that I do for the podcast and the brand that I'm growing there. And so I encourage you, if you do not have an accountability partner, seek one out. Find someone that you have, a common interest with, common goals, they align, or someone who you just know will always be like on your ass. And I laugh because I'm calling right now. I'm calling KG the Black Dave Ramsey because he's totally done this kind of 180 in his mindset, and he is cracking the whip on a few of us and tackling our consumer debt. And so I am thankful for all of the accountability partners I have. And now I think the last key to this for me is finding one that is kind of more of a health, physical fitness accountability partner. That is up next. Where the meme going around like January and February were trial months. I'm going to start again in March. And so here we are in March. And I'm really going to get my life together in a few more areas. But it's just so hard trying to do it all. And it's like you want to do it all, but you can't. You're trying to, stay alive and have a good attitude and pay your bills and eat right and work out and have fun and have a love life. Like, it is really a lot to balance. And so for those things that are really important and priorities to you, accountability partners are it for the win. All right, housekeeping. The feedback from episode 125 with Danny Faust was amazing. So many of you said that you had never looked at intention setting, goal setting, manifestation in that way. Boonie, I appreciate the language. Danny's energy was dope, and I definitely want to book a session with her. And so I agree. I think it's all about how we frame these conversations about manifestation. And I know it's like we said in the episode, it is so buzzy, but it is really worthwhile and is so helpful. And if you don't like that touchy feely gooey manifestation word, then like Danny said, think of it's goal setting. Simple as that, right? And so if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to it, take some notes, and try to help you get your life together, okay? And next, I kind of want to shout out, I don't know, maybe the great thing about having guests on the podcast is because you get to kind of use their audience. If it's someone who really shares their appearance with their audience, it's dope because it introduces me to new people as well. And so I don't know, the last 2 episodes, the guests were really great in sharing with their audiences. And I just want to shout out, hey, to the people over in Australia checking out the Boonie Breakdown. It's the first time that I've seen downloads and listens over there in my analytics. I don't pop in there often, but what made me go look was that I received a notification that I charted on Apple Podcasts on the Australian charts in the relationships category. And it was my first time charting in that country. And so I looked at the stats and all right, Australia, I see y'all. I've never been to Australia. It is on my list of places to get to, but that is dope as fuck. So I just wanted to shout out the listeners over in Australia and hope they stick around. And if you missed it, the Boonie Breakdown podcast turned 3. We were running a giveaway over on our Instagram page. So if you're not following us on Instagram, head on over there at the Boonie Breakdown on Instagram. You missed. We were running 2 giveaways last week. We had one responsible giveaway, one ratchet giveaway. The responsible giveaway is now closed, but there are still a few days to enter the ratchet giveaway. So head on over there. I believe it closes on Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. It's very simple to enter, and it's a really good prize. So head on over to Instagram. And while you're following us on things, you can follow us on Facebook at The Boonie Breakdown. You can follow us at Twitter, just at Boonie Breakdown. And when sharing this episode, please use the hashtag The Boonie Breakdown and the hashtag PODIN. PODIN. You know, you can share these in your Insta story. You can retweet the things I share. You can just hit share on your Facebook. I have so many ways that you can share this, and I appreciate it every time you do. Use your social capital to share the message, the word about how bomb a Boonie Breakdown episode is. All right. So I really appreciate it. And while you're doing it, you feel like doing a little bit more, you can leave a review over in the Apple Podcast app. You can leave a review on our Facebook page as well. Just hit those 5 stars. Leave a few kind words if you feel like it. But, you know, I love your reviews, and they really make my heart swell. So that is it for me, guys. I really, really hope you enjoy this conversation. Take notes if you have to. But we're all about upward mobility and progression in 2020. So let's get ready to break it down. Hey guys, it's your girl Boonie, and I'm really excited because I've shared here on the podcast that this year I'm being way more intentional with my money, way more intentional, and I'm trying to be consumer debt free by the end of this year. It'll probably go into next year. So I always go out and look for people as inspiration for myself that will hopefully give you some inspiration. And so I'm excited to have on the podcast Sahirenys of Poised, Finance, and Lifestyle. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the conversation. I know my best friend, he started a journey on paying off all of his credit cards, and watching him do that really inspired me. Like, okay, he's married with kids. Like, you're single. You can get this together.
That's awesome you guys are talking about it though. That's like a really like taboo like thing to do where people really don't talk about their debt or their finances in general. And it's really nice that he actually opened up with you.
You're right. Like, even another one of my friends, like, we were having a discussion about money, and it's like we can talk about anything. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, we never really had like an in-depth conversation about finances. And when she was talking about the amount of debt that she was carrying, she had such shame about it. And I was like, girl, I mean, I don't have as much as you, but I got debt too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of people feel a lot of shame and guilt, and they even feel bad when they spend any type of money, extra money. They're like, oh, that could have gone towards debt. I feel so guilty. I'm going to Starbucks. I'm like, don't feel guilty. Just start owning it. That's like the first step.
It is. And, you know, since you brought this up, I saw on, because I follow you on Instagram, and I saw you had posted this quote, and I loved this. You were like, never mistake activity for achievement. And I always thought, like, oh, yeah, I like totally curbed my Starbucks habit in 2019. Like, yay, I'm not spending. I had spent in the previous year, I will say the number because I was totally ashamed. It was like $2,400 at Starbucks.
Oh, man.
Like, it's a lot of money. Like, you go every day, 4 or 5 times a week. Some days I'm just not getting a drink. I'm getting a sandwich. And so when I added it up, I was like, oh my God, like that could have been my one credit card balance gone.
Oh my gosh. How were you able to add it all up? Because I know a lot of people don't track their finances. Do you happen to budget?
So I've gotten into budgeting, but no,
Awesome.
because I use the app. So when I just
Oh,
went in the app, because the loyalty program, I started calculating, and I was like, oh my God. So for me, like even going, I think the previous year, can't remember how many visits it was, but it was like even in 1 month, it was like 27 times, which that's a lot of money. And when I looked this past year, like it was whole months where I never even went to Starbucks. So
so there is, you can do it.
you can do it.
It's possible.
But yeah, when I saw that, when you were like, never mistake activity for achievement, because it's like, okay, yeah, now you curb the habit. Now, what did you do with that $2,400 last year, though?
That's true. And then what are you going to do with that money this year? Are you going to
Yeah,
put it towards your debt?
but this year it's all debt, debt, debt. That's my goal, is to be consumer debt free. So
That's good. That's a good goal to have.
I agree. So I just want to know, people who are not familiar with you, you paid off $99,000 of debt in 5 years.
Yes, I
How?
did. So I did.
Even with like how with life happening, you have kids, like how are you able to do that?
We did that while saving for our emergency fund at the same time. So I'm a really big scaredy cat. So part of my story, what got me into personal finance, studying personal finance and getting a degree in it, was that my family lost everything during the '08 recession. And they were very
Wow.
successful. You know, that was the hard part for me, was that they were very successful. And it was just weird to me that the economy affected them so strongly. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like you guys were making good money. How can the recession affect you so hardly that you lost your home, they ended up divorcing, and they had no emergency fund savings. Everything was just tumbling on top of them."
Oh
And it
wow.
honestly, it really did frustrate me because these are people that I love and that I care about, and they're struggling financially. So I studied finance, and one of the things that I realized was that a lot of people get tips, right, from their parents, their cousins, friends, and that work with them. And a lot of it is tips that they've heard from the credit card companies. Like,
Ah.
you know what I mean? You have to be aware of who's giving you this financial advice. And a lot of times it was like, oh, you can use your credit as long as you're not using 30% or more of your credit card utilization. And a lot of people, they don't even know that tip. And when they do hear that tip,
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, I can use my credit card. I can go into debt. It's not a big deal. And we don't realize that that has a lot of negative consequences tied behind them, like high interest rates and just lowering your net worth in general. So when I went to school, I pretty much learned how to manage handling debt a little bit better. But it wasn't really until my husband and we got engaged that we started talking about our finances even deeper, because I've always talked about finance. I love talking about money. But it's awkward when you're dating and talking about money, and then when you're engaged, you're like, okay, I need to see the numbers now. We need to get official.
So what was that conversation like for the first time, bringing it up with your boyfriend and or fiance? Like, how did you even broach that subject where it was he was comfortable sharing and you were comfortable sharing?
It was rough for him. For me, it was really easy. I'm pretty upfront. But, he also caught me in the moment where he was seeing the side effects that it was affecting my family. And then he also had his parents that were getting affected by the recession in their own way. So he was very open to it because he knew that I was getting a degree in finance. So he was like, you know what? You probably do know what you're talking about, just a little bit. So it
Gotcha.
opened it up a little bit because I did have a background in it. And I was also making sure I was like promoting him to read certain books like Rich Dad Poor Dad and The Millionaire Next Door. And a lot of those books really do promote you to start really focusing on your finances. So him, putting those little tips out, like read these books, kind of opened up his mind, saying, oh, okay, it's okay to talk about money. And it's important to become knowledgeable about how to handle your finances. So that was pretty much the first step. And it worked out. We ended up paying off all of our student loans before we got married. And that was a really big accomplishment for us. So our wedding day was more of like we're finally debt free from our student loans, which was
So how much was that, if you don't mind me asking?
it had to be at least half. About
Okay.
$50,000 in student loans. Probably about
Gotcha.
45. It was a lot. It was I think that was thing that was bothering me the most was that his student loans were getting split up into little
Okay.
baby loans, and so the minimum that he owed was like always increasing. So I was like, we might as well get rid of this debt. And he actually stumbled upon Dave Ramsey, where with the baby steps, where it came with the snowball method.
Yep.
He's like, okay, this guy is kind of mean. I like it. I need it right now.
Dave Ramsey is so mean.
He'll grill you a little bit. So I think when you're first starting your debt free journey, you kind of had to get upset and grill down a little bit. And I do that to myself a lot, but not everyone has that like that bulldog in them to like be mean to themselves. So I think Dave Ramsey takes the heat for off of themselves, and they're like, Dave Ramsey's mean to me. I was like, no, you have to be mean to yourself, you know? But
Yeah,
I
it's
think
so
it's
funny because when you listen to his like podcast
mhm.
sometimes, you'll hear these financial situations that people are in, and you're like, "Phew, okay, I'm not as bad as that." So
No
it makes you
excuses.
feel yeah, it makes you feel a little better, but it's still he still is very direct in his advice. So you're right.
Yeah.
You do need someone to be like, look, this is out of hand. You have to do XYZ.
Yeah, and especially when you're seeing yourself, you have the potential, you're making good money, but then you don't see any of your money and you start getting frustrated. You're like, God, I'm so young. I'm starting on the right path. I have the degree, I have a good job. Where's the money? And people get frustrated, down the line, like 10, 20 years later, and they still have nothing to show for. And I told my boyfriend when we were dating, my husband now, but I was like, you're on the right path. Even if you're not with me, I want you to be financially secure because you have a lot of potential, and I don't want you to veer off the right path that you're on, because a lot of times we're not able to like accomplish our passions, do the things that we love because money's so tight.
Hmm.
We both come from poor backgrounds. Dominican, my parents are immigrants from Dominican Republic. He's from Alabama. Both, not very well off financially, and we weren't taught about finances. So to me, I was like, anyone that I know that I care about, I want to make sure that they're able to figure out how to position themselves for success. And a lot of that has to do with calculating your net worth. And for me,
Mm,
your net worth is pretty much what you own minus what you owe. And for a lot of young people, they owe a lot more and they barely
a
own
lot.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how are you supposed to get to zero so that you can start building wealth? You have to start getting rid of that debt. And I think that was what motivated me. And he was like, I get that. I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know growing up, I can't ever recall a conversation, with my parent, my mom, with my grandmother, where it was like, this is what you do and this is how you balance a bank account, or this is, I just never heard money talked about in a way of one accumulating wealth or how they manage their money. I just know that like I used to joke my grandmother, like I would be like, "Oh, I need, well, whatever. We need a new calculator at school." And my grandmother's response to every single request that required money was almost always, "Okay, the Lord is going to make a way." And then I know I would just have it. So I don't know like what she had to do. Did she have savings? Was she taking out money? Was she used I have no idea what they did. Like, but I just know we weren't well off, but I always had most of the things that I needed. And I do wish that it was more of those foundational conversations, because I feel like a lot of people in our age group are probably making way more money than our parents have ever made,
Mm-hmm.
but also in this position where we owe a lot more money
Oh,
than our
yes.
parents have ever had to owe. So,
And the cost of living is so dramatic as well.
so much higher.
Oh my
So
gosh.
much
Even
higher.
gas right now is like out of control here in San Diego. I don't even
Oh,
want
how
to look at
much
the
is it
price.
there? How much is it there?
Ooh, it's like 3.89, 3.95, almost $4. It was $4 like a couple weeks ago. So
Wow. I
it's
won't tell
up
you what it
there.
is on the East Coast here.
Don't break my heart.
Definitely not that high.
It's out of control over here. But you see, those are the types of things that we're like, wow, the cost of living's high. Um, the debt that we owe is high. And yes, our income could be high. You can make a lot of money, but still be broke,
Yep.
still be living paycheck to paycheck, still be highly in debt and have a negative net worth. And those are the things that, we think when we're younger, oh, if I make six figures, I'll be good. I'll be straight. Everything will just work out.
Yeah.
Just like my grandma said, everything's gonna work out. The Lord's gonna provide everything. And then you get into these positions and you're making a decent amount of money and just like, well, this isn't working out. Do I need to make more
Yeah.
money? Do I need more side hustles? And I don't know about in the East Coast, but here in Cali, almost everyone I know has a side hustle.
No,
Almost everyone.
if most people my age, they're either, I know some people do Instacart, some people Uber, some people have started side businesses. Like you
It's
said,
not even a,
everybody's hustling.
it's not even a luxury anymore. You have to do it just to make ends meet over here.
You have to. And that's what I was telling. And even, this is, for after the new tax plan rolled out last year and a lot of people's taxes were, affected. I even told my one friend, like, look, you just need to make an LLC for, for
You
this
gotta
side
do
hustle.
something.
You have to get a tax break.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So it's like, if you document and you can prove that you can pull this off, but like you need to do something to at least save on the tax bill at the end of the year. So yeah, I also liked that you said while you guys were on this journey of becoming debt free, you still found a way to save for an emergency fund. So how did you balance between those two goals of, all right, this money is allocated for debt, this money is going to the savings, and this is what we're living off? Like, how did you figure that out?
Yeah, so I'm a big scary cat again. So um because my family was affected so dramatically from the '08 recession, I always felt like I needed to have a lot of money just saved just in case something happened because I didn't want to end up in that same situation. So what we decided to do was to be more realistic with our emergency fund goals. So I know Dave Ramsey says start your emergency fund with $1,000, but our rent was like 1,500. So we're like, yeah, right. $1,000 wouldn't cover anything. So we had to
Mm,
modify what a good emergency fund would be for us. And that ended up being 1 month of our cost of living, of our bills. And from there, we started focusing, once we accomplished that goal, then we started focusing on paying off our debt. And we made it a yearly goal to save 1 more month of our emergency fund. Because again, we're in
oh, I like
California.
that. Yeah.
It's expensive, and as long as you baby step it, you'll get to where you're trying to go. We're not in a competition with no one. No one knows our real numbers. It's more of just setting a good goal to be like, okay, every year we want to accomplish one thing, and that's to add another month to our emergency fund. And as it doesn't matter how long it takes, we're going to start eventually getting to that hefty emergency fund where we feel more financially confident. And paying off debt was just the second priority after that. And we used the snowball method. It was very, very functional for us, especially with the student loans and then eventually with like our cars and stuff like that.
Okay. And for the people listening, can you explain what the snowball method is, just like really quickly?
Yeah, so the snowball method is pretty much breaking down your debt by looking at it in little sections. So you kind of prioritize the smallest debt to the largest debt, and then you put all of your extra money towards the top debt, the first debt. And then once you pay off that debt, you snowball that amount of money that you're putting on toward that other debt towards the new debt. And then it starts creating a snowball effect where you're putting more and more money towards paying off one specific debt, and eventually you'll end up becoming debt free because you would have paid off all of the loans. And I know a lot of people have a lot of separate debt, multiple credit cards, multiple student
Mhm.
loans, multiple personal loans, and car loans as well. So it's very beneficial to just to get the quick wins and not focus on all the debts that you owe, and more focused on knocking one out at a time. Hope that
Got
made
it.
sense.
No, it did. That's the method that I've been using.
Oh,
So
good,
I
good.
think it's also it is a big like psychological thing because I have like one more payment and yeah, one more payment until my first card is paid off. And
Mhm.
so it feels like I accomplished something very quickly. Like,
Yes,
yay.
you're winning. That's the
Yeah.
whole point. We wanna feel like we're winning with our finances, not depressed and upset that we're not getting anywhere. And I think that's what a lot of people, they either quit doing their budget or quit their debt-free journey because they don't feel like they're getting anywhere. And I think when you get those little small wins, you start getting more motivated, more hyped, and you're like, "Yeah, I can't wait to pay off my next credit card." So it's definitely a hype.
It is. Okay, I want to move into this method that I've seen on your page. Um, the high five banking method.
Yes.
So as I was looking, I'm like, wow, 5 bank accounts, like that just seems like a lot to manage. So first, what is the high five banking method?
So, the high five banking method is pretty much a simple way to organize your finances, your bank account, so that it can complement your budget and your financial goals. A lot of people are trying to use the two bank account method to manage and organize all of their finances, and they're actually just clashing into each other. So, a lot of times we'll use one checking account to to pay for all of our bills, to pay for all of our lifestyle wants, and if we go over, we start going into debt or we start pulling from our savings accounts. Instead, I positioned the five bank accounts within the high five banking method to have more purpose with each one of them so that you know exactly where you to spend and where to save. So it's
Okay.
composed of two checking accounts. The first one is your bills and the second one is your lifestyle account, and then three savings accounts. One is your emergency fund, the next is your long term goals, and the last one is your short term goals.
Okay. So when you say checking account lifestyle, what do you mean that to use that account for?
So the bills is anything that's mandatory.
Okay.
Everything that you need to survive, your housing, your groceries, gas for your car, your utilities, anything that's mandatory. I guess they call it the four pillars of your home.
Okay.
So it's if everything went wrong, what are the mandatory things that you have to pay? Even the minimum payments on your debt is a bill. It's mandatory.
Okay.
You have to do it. If you don't pay for these things, it would quickly affect your life. And then your lifestyle, these are more optional. These are things that you want to do. These are your hobbies, your personal care, household things that you want to buy for your household. These are things that are more flexible. They don't have to be set in stone like your bills. And you're able to increase this or decrease this depending on your income and the debt amount that you want to pay. So I feel like a lot of people, they feel guilty if they want to go to Starbucks. You know what I mean? They feel guilty, like, oh, I could be paying towards my debt. Give yourself an allowance for your lifestyle and say, you know what, every single month, I'm gonna give myself $200, let's say, for example, and I can spend it on whatever I want in my lifestyle. I can go out to eat with my friends, I can go to coffee dates, I can go get my nails done, whatever it is that you want. And a big tip that I tell people for their lifestyle account is to, let's say they have a Starbucks addiction.
Been
Go
there.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead right when you put money in that lifestyle account, go ahead and buy yourself a gift card for Starbucks. That way you have prioritized your bills first and then your lifestyle. And from your lifestyle, you say, you know what, I do want to treat myself, but I'm only going to treat myself to $20 worth of coffee a month. And for some people that might be realistic, for other people like, oh, that's not realistic.
Hmm.
But you want to make sure that it's an amount that is not going to steal from your savings goals, like your emergency fund, paying off debt, your short-term and long-term goals. That's the biggest part with your lifestyle. You want to make sure that you give yourself an opportunity to be yourself, you know, to have a hobby or do things that you love, but don't let it affect your other fingers in your hand.
Got it. Perfect explanation. And so for all 5 of these accounts, so like when you get paid, do you already have it set up to allocate to go to each of these? Or do you have it go to one account and then you manually move it to each?
So the first thing is you have to, it's like a trick. The high five banking method kind of forces you to budget because a lot of people don't budget. So you kind of have to figure out, do the math and figure out how much are your bills going to be this month? How much are you going to allocate to your lifestyle, your emergency fund, your debt, and so on and so on. So once you've figured out those numbers, I like to do direct deposit into my bills account and then from there move the money right away, so
Okay.
into the appropriate accounts, because at that point, you know, things do happen in life. Let's say you have an emergency fund that's $1,000 because that's appropriate for where you live, but you have an emergency that costs $1,200. Well, at least you have $1,000, but instead of going into debt for $200, you can modify, you know, after you pay your bills, the money that you have to pay for that emergency, you know, instead of
Yeah.
relying on credit cards and debt to suffice for all anything that comes up in your life. So that's why I really prioritize tell a lot of people to use the short-term goals account, because the short-term goals account is anything that it takes less than 12 months to save for. And for me, a lot of times this is the account that you can use to save for things that you know are going to come up that catch you out of nowhere and that leads you to go back
Okay.
into debt. So instead of going into debt for a Vegas trip with your girlfriends, you start saving for that trip beforehand. You know, if you know your car needs maintenance, you start saving for it right away. Don't go into debt for it, because I think a lot of people, we're just so used to debt that we
Yeah.
have to, have a backup plan and be like, okay, I'm not going to depend on debt anymore. I'm going to depend on this short term goals account instead.
Yeah, I know. I that took some getting used to, like, all right. Don't just automatically pull out a card, like, you have the money set aside for this. So go ahead and use that money.
Yeah, it's not feel guilty as well.
Yeah. So when you're with your savings accounts, are there any particular savings accounts that you recommend? I know there are some high interest ones or that give you a little bit more interest than other accounts, but is there any account that you're fond of?
I really do like the online savings accounts, the high yield savings accounts specifically. I feel like there's a lot of benefit from not having quick access to these accounts,
Mhm.
especially for your emergency fund. I feel like a lot of people, they see the money in their emergency fund and they want to transfer it out to their checking account for their lifestyle or for any other things that they want to do. So I think it's really important that you utilize online banks, because they're also charging or offering you high yield savings accounts where you get a high APY, annual percentage yield. And you're also able to avoid a lot of bank fees. A lot of
Yeah.
big banks charge a lot of fees for checking accounts and savings accounts, maintenance accounts, overdraft accounts, all of these things. And you can actually avoid a lot of that. And I think that's a really big benefit for a lot of people.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think too, it's definitely everything about this is like the psychology behind it, because I did definitely have to move one savings account, because like you said, when I saw it sitting there like with my checking account, it's like, okay, well I can transfer 200 and do this, and then I'm like, oh, now I got to put it back. So not seeing it tied with like my bills, it is so helpful. So
Yes,
helpful.
yes, it really is, because again, out of sight, out of mind really does work when it comes to your emergency fund specifically. And especially when you are saving for those long term goals. I know a lot of people, our age range, we're trying to get out of debt. We're trying to buy a house. We want to get married. We want to have kids. We want to travel the world. We want to do so many things, but there's only so much money.
Yeah.
So, if you get out of debt, you're able to save quicker for your long term goals of buying a home or having a big Europe trip or a big Caribbean trip, whatever your long term goals are, you're able to accomplish them much quicker once you become debt free and you've built the habit of saving for something like the short term goals account.
Yeah, I definitely, as I'm in this journey myself, it's like listening to this bank account method. I don't have 5 bank accounts, but hearing your explanation of it, I'm like, well, this actually kind of makes sense, right? Because right,
Yeah.
I like, yeah, I have like one main save, like my emergency savings account, then I have like a play savings account, and then like my checking account. Really, and I do have another checking account that I use, but I guess I do kind of use that, if now that I'm thinking about it, for lifestyle, but it's not formalized for that. Like that's the one, like, okay, I'm getting my nails done, I'm gonna use that account versus my main account. So when I was listening to your explanation, I'm like, okay, I need to go ahead and like formalize this in that method, because it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's good. Again, don't feel a lot of people feel guilty for getting their nails done or going to Starbucks. Don't feel guilty. Just make it a small priority. It's not the top priority. Your bills are your top priority, but make it a small priority where you're like, I do want to gift myself some money to enjoy my life on the journey, because a lot of people are waiting until they're debt free to do everything. You can do
Yeah.
small things to pamper yourself, to re energize yourself. And I think that's really important when you're on this debt free journey, because a lot of people have a lot of debt and it's going to take a little bit of time. So you have to, be patient with yourself. And that was a good way for us to be, to feel like we're not completely losing everything.
Yeah, and that was my thing. Like, I'm not talking about like my mortgage, student loans just yet. Like, I feel like once I get the credit cards gone, then okay, now I have a lot of money freed up where I can maybe just keep that snowball method and pile them onto these student loans, because that is really, and I've said this before on the podcast, like my student loans are literally, I think, the biggest piece of my financial puzzle that give me anxiety. And yeah, so we'll tackle those, but I'm gonna need a lot more money.
Yeah, I feel you. But that's why a lot of people, they have to just get their mindset right, and this really does help them, feel like they're winning along the journey.
Yeah, and I also like how you mentioned too, like, and I kind of want to ask you that, like, I struggle with this, and I was saying this to my best friend, where it's like, oh my God, you only live once, right? We just
Mhm.
this week, the tragedy of Kobe Bryant happened, and everyone's like, oh my God, those reminders that at any moment this thing life could be gone. And so you're like, I want to live. I don't want to miss out on experiences, but also keeping in mind that you have, you know, these lists of financial goals that you want to work on to provide you a better life for the future. And so
Mhm.
it's like, for me, that is sometimes my struggle, is finding that balance where I don't like go, like, I'll do like, okay, I'm going to treat myself to this. And then it snowballs into this whole thing. And I look up like, oh my God, this was not the plan to do all of this, but
Mhm.
here we are. So how do you like play off that? Like, where you're still living, but you're still also mindful of the goals you have set?
So what I do personally is, again, I give myself a little bit of money to live on a month to month basis where I can enjoy. Like if I want to go
Mhm.
eat Cinnabon or Starbucks or go to a movie or date night, I can do that. I don't have to feel guilty about doing that. But when it comes to bigger things, like I have coming up my 5-year wedding anniversary, that means something to me. I'm like, this is a big accomplishment. Not everyone makes it to
Yeah.
5 years. So my husband and I were actually saving for our a little getaway to Vegas for our short-term goals. So we're saving into that account every single month because that's something that matters to us. It's a it's a big milestone for us. So that's the specific place that I save it for. And it makes me feel good knowing that if I want to overspend, let's say my lifestyle or for something else, I look at that account and it has a big purpose behind it. I know that's the money in
Mm,
that account is for my trip to Vegas to celebrate my 5-year anniversary with my husband. That means something to me. And that's why I would
gotcha.
tell people, if these accounts don't mean anything to you, make them mean something. Put some purpose behind it. If your emergency fund means nothing to you, think about what would you do if you were hospitalized or you got in a car accident, your car messed up. What are you going to do? And for me, it was like, you know what scared me, what brought a lot of a purpose to my emergency fund was I don't want to be, excuse me, I don't want to be in a position where I'm homeless or
Mm,
I don't have food for my kids or, my car's broken down. I can't get to the hospital. Those are things that trigger me. I know my triggers. We all know our triggers, what motivates
yes.
us, what scares us. So use that to bring purpose into each account. So again, for my short-term goals account, it means something to me that I want to have this little mini vacation with my spouse. So I'm going to save for it. And every time that I go over, I think about going over my lifestyle account or spending money at Costco or Target. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want to do that because that money that's going to have to come to pay for that credit card or to pay for that debt is going to come from my vacation. And that means that's not a vacation. It's more of like this accomplishment that we've had of five
Yeah.
years being married. So that is a bigger purpose to me than going to Target and spending an extra $200 on unnecessary things.
I love
So
that. Put a little
good.
purpose behind it. I love
Put some
that.
purpose in it.
All right. So it is around this time people are starting to do their taxes, praying, I'm hoping, possibly receiving a tax refund. So
Yay.
if you were advising these people, like, okay, they're gonna get like, let's say random number, $3,300 back from federal and state taxes. What would you recommend that they do with their money?
If they do not have an emergency fund, open up a savings account, high yield savings account, and save at least 1 month of your bills, which should be equal to the bills amount that you put into your bills checking account, into your emergency fund. That is the top priority for your safety and for your security. And then after that, I would put the rest of it into my debt. Just start demolishing it. Those are the small opportunities that you have to really start knocking down some credit card debt or some student loans debt. It's not every day that you have like $3,000 or $2,000 to put towards your student loans. So take advantage of that. Even though you want to go on vacation, think of the possibilities. If you lower that debt, realistically, what people don't realize is that you're actually lowering your bills. You're lowering your cost of living. So moving forward, if you don't go back into debt, your cost of living is going to be less. Your financial burden is going to be dramatically lifted. So you're
Mm,
going to be more stress free. And I think that's the key to life is, to be stress free, to be happy. And
yeah.
less bills makes me happy.
Yes, less bills. All right. So this is the part of the podcast where we are going to do the breakdown, and I am just going to say one word, and you're going to say the first thing that comes to mind. So
Okay.
it can be a word, it could be like, ugh, it could be a sound, whatever comes to mind.
All
All
right.
right. First one, credit cards,
Disgusting.
millennials,
Passionate.
budget,
Beautiful.
money,
Awesome.
investments,
Generational wealth.
savings,
Your best friend.
and last one, debt free.
An accomplishment.
Love it.
Good,
All
good,
right.
good.
You did it really quick. Usually people are like, I don't know. I can't think of something.
Well, I guess they're all into finance, so I'm just like, oh yes, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. On
They're
a
all
budget, thank
tailored.
gosh.
Yeah, they're all tailored to each person.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. I thought it was gonna be like harder. I was like, I thought you were gonna say like
Yeah, people get
knowledge. I
such
was like, I don't
anxiety. Yeah,
know.
no, you're fine. You did awesome. So if you could tell everyone where they can find you on social media, your website, any YouTube channels, wherever they can connect with you on the internet.
Yes, so my Instagram is kind of where it's at. So my Instagram handle is Poised Finance Lifestyle. I have a lot of great information on my blog, thepoisedlifestyle.com. And I also have great videos on YouTube, Poised Finance plus Lifestyle. I really do try to do a lot of Q&As. So if you guys send me some questions in my DM, I definitely do like little fun videos trying to answer the question as quickly as possible. So it's a little entertaining.
Nice. Okay, so I'll be sure to link all of those resources in the show notes and over on thebooniebreakdown.com. So be sure to follow, subscribe, and learn some more especially about the high five banking method.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think that is definitely potentially a move that I'm totally going to consider because I feel like I'm there, but I haven't really formalized it. So this might be the plan.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to thank our guest, Sahirenys Pierce of Poised Finance and Lifestyle for coming on and giving us some great tips on how to get financially stable and debt-free in 2020. So be sure to follow her YouTube channel and check out all the great resources that she has. And if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to listen and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or any app that you listen to your favorite podcast on. Do not forget to leave those reviews too. You might just hear your review on the next episode. Follow us across all social media. Share the episode with those you love, those you don't love, those you fucking hate. I do not make these pretty images for nothing, okay? Have a dope-ass week. Thank you for listening. And remember, the ratchet in me always honors the ratchet in you. Until next time.